This is a self-worth mini-series, the four critical principles to personal transformation, specifically self-worth. Hi, my name is Michael. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, and I'm going to be sharing the four critical principles about how you could transform yourself very quickly. And so I first like to say a warm welcome and start with a quote. Give your life so much meaning, you simply will not stop yourself. This is something I figured out in my early years of transformation. And I have to say, this is powerful right here, right now. Just by understanding this quote fully, you can get results. So, what I mean by this is stack as much meaning as you possibly can. I'm talking about like 7, 10, all the way to 20 reasons why you want to accomplish your dreams, your goals, your ambitions. And if you still don't have motivation, keep stacking meaning. All right. So there is a lot to cover. And congratulations, if you're tuning into this, this is pre AI content straight up. It's a 16 years of experience dedicated to personal transformation, specifically self worth principles. And these four critical principles are critical, the real grounded for real grounded transformation. No joke. And I'm so happy to be sharing this in the pre AI stage because the internet's full of nonsense nowadays. So, over the next 4 days, we'll dive into foundational principles for reprogramming your subconscious mind using simple, conscious, everyday techniques. These lessons are overlooked principles that are critical. Most people have heard of them, but do not leverage them. In most cases, these principles are working against people that want transformation. So I have to say, simplicity removes resistance. When resistance disappears, transformation begins. And I'll be simplifying a lot that you could work with right away. So there's a trend I noticed of people continuously seeking a special hack for personal transformation while disregarding core principles that have the most power in transformation. Now, this is coming from experience. And yes, I used to be one of these people, the Mr. Know-it-alls, always seeking, 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 not getting real grounded results. So this 4 day series is built upon the common denominator of transformation. The information in these 4 days have come forth after having integrated many of my own personal transformations over the last 16 years, as well as working with clients over the last 9 years as a clinical hypnotherapist. The common denominator was found and then formulated into simple principles. Since then, with testing these foundational principles, they have proven to stand the test of time while working with many other clients go through their own transformation. So let me start by asking you, have you ever felt like you're the biggest obstacle? The person in the mirror. I know that's where I used to be. And whether it's, self-sabotage, procrastination, I was really good at that, by the way, not feeling motivated or even self-doubt, resistance, limitations, or learning, not learning to become resourceful, or even letting go what doesn't serve you. I used to say, the universe just seems to be against me. And wow, is this crippling? I gave up for a long time. And then I got angry at life and myself, beating myself up. It's not fair. What's wrong with me? Why me? Or they are trying to suppress me. But really, the universe just reflects what we output. What we give out is what we get back. And working with your subconscious, it becomes super clear. And after I realized this and started getting clarification and validation of this, wow, did my life ever change? So working with my subconscious, not against it, made me realize this. Okay, so get ready to explore foundational steps to your personal transformation, and it's simpler than you might think, just in these four critical principles. So, first of all, who am I? Why am I here? And what makes me someone to share this type of information? I will be very brief with it because I know you just want the information. I know, and I'm going to give you the information. That first, a little bit of context, a little bit of background story. So, my name is Michael Van Soest. I am a self worth specialist working as a clinical hypnotherapist for quite a while now, 9 years. And so, as you can see, you can take a screenshot or a snapshot and just read all through that. I have many, certificates, declarations, yada, yada, yada. But the main thing is the story of transformation. So I had my first panic attack when I was 17 years old. I ended up in the hospital. And since, the next 4 years after that, I was in and out of the doctor's office. I had severe depression, anxiety. I couldn't hold a job. I had very low motivation, extremely low self worth. And I went through a series of tests, all the tests that doctors can make. And they basically, well, we're not sure what to say. But how about this? We can start experimenting with different medications and see what works. Well, I tried some and I found out the side effects were worse. And so I decided to go alternative. And I'm very happy I did because I let go of all my medications and I became super happy, healthy, wealthy. I got into my passion, my purpose, and it all started with diving into the subconscious. And so that's the story of my transformation. I could go into a lot more detail, but now I just really want to share this because it is I have to say it's probably the most critical pieces that have really helped me go forward. And I really like to share it with everyone. So to get the most out of these next 4 days, I recommend taking notes. Writing out always helps things stick more deeply. Writing out with a pen, paper, you know what I mean? Put it into practice is the second best thing. You know how that, or the main thing that you should actually do. Writing is one thing, putting into practice is totally another thing. So, personal change, transformation is about integration. With integration, repetition and practice is your friend. Okay, so chances are you will be reviewing information you might have a sense of already knowing, but have you acknowledged how to use this information to your advantage, or are you unconsciously or subconsciously using this information against yourself? The four principles I will be sharing. Hint, most people I work with are using these four principles against themselves. This is why I want to share this, by the way. I see it all the time. So, definition, clarification of knowing. Knowing is not only mental, but also emotional, acting, living the knowledge through your being. If information is just in your head, you won't get anywhere near great results. And this is unfortunately the downfall for why people struggle with true long lasting transformation or change. Okay, so let's start off with the series. I know you want to get into it. I want to get into it. Perspective. This is the first topic. And now, again, oh, I've already heard of this. How is this going to be different? We're going to take a deep dive because there's a lot more to this than most people explain. So, this is a very simple lesson, but it goes really deep. This is a very powerful lesson that is overlooked. No pun intended. Get it? Overlooked perspective. Haha. So, this simple lesson can transform the way you interpret your reality, influencing your thoughts, emotions, and eventually actions. It's the definition of perspective: a particular attitude toward or way of regarding something, a point of view. Perspective has the power to influence a belief based upon your unique orientation. A belief is a decision that something is true for you in the presence or absence of evidence. That last part is very, very important. Presence or absence of evidence. So beliefs can be completely false or delusional. So perspective directly influences beliefs. And I will explain that further along as we go in these 4 days. So, how easy a perspective can change. Here's an example: a man walks on a bus with his kids. Now imagine a man, father with two kids. They walk on the bus. Two kids are in front of the father, and the one kid is quite loud and just obnoxious, causing disruption. And the other one is sad, just like whimpering, crying almost, and just making noise. And so the father does go and find a seat, and there's two seats in front of this old man where there's an empty seat. So the father sits beside the old man and two kids in front. Two kids continue to be disruptive, making noise, kicking the seat. And the father just has his head down, those eyes closed. And the kids are just becoming more and more disruptive. And the old man finally gets irritated. And eventually he taps on the shoulder of this father and says, "Excuse me, sir. Your kids are being very disruptive right now, and would just like some peace on this bus. Can you do something about it?" And the old man, the father, opens his eyes, lifts up his head, and looks at the old man and is like, I am so sorry. I just don't know what to do right now. I just came from the hospital. My wife just passed away, and I just don't know what to do. I don't know. And I don't even know my kids understand what's going on right now. And boom, right there, the old man completely changes from irritated to deep compassion. And so that's how fast a perspective can change emotion. just by becoming aware of information, realizing or learning information, it can instantly shift one's perspective. Now, yes, this is simple so far. It could be as simple as gathering someone else's perspective. Now, a lot of us don't practice changing perspective. So, shifting perspective is very subtle, but with momentum, it can be life changing. So, your life does not respond to what happens, it responds to how you perceive what happens. The exact same event with a different perspective generates completely different realities. So this is an analyzed model of how perception shapes reality. You got perception, it can be influenced from ideas, background traumas, etc. And once we perceive a certain way, it begins to really influence our emotions. And our emotions then is a language of the subconscious, by the way. The emotions move through the entire body because the subconscious gets the instruction of the emotions very clearly. And then it begins to influence everything else, our mind, our behavior, our actions, and more so focus. And so there's something called the reticular activating system. Again, this is probably common knowledge, but our emotions will tell our brain, the reticular activating system, to filter out everything else because there's a lot of information and it will only focus on what is most relevant to the emotion. Now, with that in mind, what happens with that is once we have information only relevant to us, if with our emotion we're feeling, we're going to find evidence. We're going to find all the evidence, just like if you buy a blue Jeep or any color Jeep, you just fall in love with, oh my gosh, I love this color. I love this car. And I'm just going to go buy, test drive it. Next thing you know, you see it everywhere. Are there more Jeeps, blue Jeeps, or is our mind starting to filter things out and really being attentive to those blue Jeeps? And so we gain evidence, and the more evidence we gain, the more validation we gain, it turns into a belief. We begin to settle. Oh, the mind doesn't have to work hard as much. Oh, I know this. This is true for me. And boom, settle into a belief. It goes into the subconscious and then it influences our reality, all of our behaviors, all of our actions, etc. The cycle then repeats itself. And so once we have that belief, it then influences our perception. And the cycle keeps going and going and going until we feel pigeonholed, locked into this is the way it is. And we just get stuck. We get stuck and it feels like we're not really moving or changing. But there is a way to break out of this. And this is what these four critical lessons are about. So beliefs are immensely powerful, but we are the ones who form beliefs, especially with empowering information that can tell you how to form a belief. Now, here's something very, very interesting and critical. Why is it that our perspectives, which run our life, are primarily based on perceptions that are often formed with limited information? What do I mean by limited information? So, typically as a kid, we are self-focused. Our world is our parents and our home. And a simple lesson sometimes from our parents or teachers can be misinterpreted. Often with a developing brain, a child has a developing brain. It can't see the bigger picture, doesn't have the critical factor mind, the planning, everything else that, our brain eventually develops into so we could actually live in the world. And so with a limited brain, a limited perspective, developing brain, we often just see typical lessons that the parent be, oh, this is such a loving lesson. And we're trying to protect the child, but that child's like, oh, something bad happened to me. For example, if a child is playing with a wire, for example, and it's sitting beside an outlet, and then, eventually, oh, look it, there's something to stick the wire into. And next thing you know, the parents see that. I'm like, oh my God, and they rip the copper wire out of their hands. So the child starts crying. And it's like, oh my God, that was dangerous. That hurt. That was painful. They might start interpreting there's something wrong with me. I did bad. I'm not good, or whatever else can arise from that limited perspective. And so most humans do not update their subconscious programs that were formed from being a kid. Now, you cannot change a memory, but you could relate to a memory differently. And that's where the transformation is, relating to the memory differently. So, yes, there's many ways with hypnotherapy and just really getting your subconscious information, how to change those very quickly, how to change memories very quickly in the sense of relatability. Personal limitations and restrictions are typically caused by what we believe to be true about ourselves, how we perceive ourselves. So, we're perceiving ourselves as adults with developed perceptions and beliefs from childhood. We're walking around with childish beliefs, essentially. Isn't that funny? Not really. So, how we perceive ourselves is often based on our interactions with outside influences, parents, teachers, TV. But what is acknowledged is typically not the full picture. So we don't often fully know the intentions or agendas of others, especially as a child developing brain. You can't see too far outside our circle. So instead, we assume, not seeing the full picture, and form a false belief or limited perspective that can affect our thoughts, emotions, actions, and in the end, our outcome in life. So, throughout our entire life, we are subject to all types of information. And depending on preconceived notions and themes we are subject to or exploring, will determine a great portion of how we process information, or what information we accept or reject, and how we conclude our perception of ourselves, with which equals beliefs about ourselves. So the solution, and of course, here's some variable questions. Everyone's case may be a little bit different. I'm trying to be general here. So, how quickly can you change your perspective of a situation or circumstance? And this is where the key of transformation is. If you can get really good at accumulating multiple perspectives of one situation and choose which option seems the most, I guess you could say, um, the best for yourself, or the most growing oriented, so you could really evolve from situations. That's where you'll really ground it change. So I always like to say, okay, if there's one situation you don't like, ask questions, get different information, seek different perspectives. Know that if you just focus on your own, chances are your perspective will be influenced from the past, your traumas, your pains, childish beliefs, etc. And you might just continue a path you don't really prefer. So, how can you gain more information to better conclude who you deem yourself to be? How can you see your past mistakes as lessons rather than failures? How many ways can you use one set of facts? What questions can you ask others and yourself? How many conclusions can you think of based on one set of facts? And so, the more you practice the ability to change between different perspectives using questions, the more power you will have to be able to diminish and or eliminate personal resistance and limitations. And this, of course, equals an increased self worth. And so, going forward, summary of perspective and the real work is beginning to bring in more perspectives. So we form perspectives about ourselves, often based upon limited information, often from other people's comments or opinions about us. They may not be the most ideal person we're taking those opinions from. How we process information and what information we accept or reject, and also how we conclude our perception of ourselves, is often determined by our beliefs about ourselves. And our beliefs about ourselves often come from an influence of someone else's beliefs. So perceptions directly influence beliefs. And of course, I'll explain. Um, I do have a 42-day, I don't know why I put that in here yet. I do have a 42-day self-worth reset guide, and there's many other perspective tools. I go extra deep in perspective. So this is just a snippet of what I actually get into. So based on limited information, we will often conclude this is just who I am, or this is the way it is, or it runs in the family. You know, there's a great book called Biology of Belief by Bruce Lipton. And the conclusion that I got out of it that really stuck with me is our genetics are programmable by our beliefs. So what really runs in the family? beliefs. They're passed down from our parents when we're a child, when we're growing and developing our brain. Okay, so this concludes the first day, a very simple yet powerful concept to start to integrate into your everyday life. There are two main ways. I'm not quite done. There are two main ways to use this concept. One, examining your past. Why and how did you conclude who you are the way that you did? What influences did you have around you that helped you conclude who you are? Did you conclude who you are based on assumptions, opinions, or limited information? Maybe it's time to update them. And then, if two, the other way is bringing greater curiosity. And I should highlight curiosity because it is a really important word here. Bringing greater curiosity into your everyday life going forward. How can more information help you shape a better perspective of a situation? Start by asking yourself why. Why do I instantly perceive it this way? Why not that way? I like to ask questions like, how can I perceive this in a way that's going to help me really thrive forward? Or how is this going to help? How can I perceive a way that's going to really make me get the lessons so I could grow fast? Ask more questions. Investigate more information from many perspectives before coming to a conclusion. So shifting perspective is very subtle at first, yet we all know perceiving a situation differently can turn into a different conversation than we might have had otherwise, right? So conversations might present an opportunity a different direction just by changing perspective and talking a different way, seeing things a different way. Opportunity moves us into action. If we feel really good about an opportunity, it's like, wow, I never saw it that way. Oh, that's a great opportunity. And we get just fired up. It can move us into action. And again, stack as many possible reasons you can on the opportunity. And you may find you get into motivation way quicker. And then, of course, actions change our life in the physical world. Action is the physical language of reality. So changing perspective can lead you into a different frequency timeline of life. The sooner you could catch a settling of perspective, the quicker you can change it and pivot your life into a more preferred direction. Okay, that is it for day one. Woo! All right, bye for now.